Hi everyone, welcome to the third part of Create Book OCs with me, where we work on character reference sheets based on my, as of now, unreleased books descriptions, so I could then draw artwork for said book and create more animations for this channel in the near future. Today we're working on mostly negative secondary characters. I don't say villains here as the name because the three characters we're gonna be taking a look at are not at all completely and utterly bad. I would like to believe that their life circumstances were rather difficult and some of the bad things were their fault, while others were mostly accidents. This term also implies some potential for improvement, whether it is being fully redeemed or just getting a little better. Ophira is a hard-working woman and a responsible Tharian president. She became self-sufficient at a very young age, as her mother had to work long hours after her father left them. Little Ophira was often left on her own, but knew it was necessary and thus tried her best to help her mother by studying more and tending to her mother's commissioned flowers. Ophira saw firsthand how ordinary people could feel helpless in certain circumstances, and so she always felt like it was her duty to make sure her country stayed safe and the people within had equal rights. Ophira's determination led to her becoming president at a very young age compared to previous Tharian presidents. Despite becoming a strict yet fair president, Ophira's first priority has always been her mother. No matter what is going on at work, she is the only person who can get her out of a meeting at any moment and receive her full unconditional love and attention. Now, the first character we have today is a bit of a slow burn character. What I mean by this is that she doesn't have that much time devoted to her in the first book and is mostly developed throughout the second and third volumes. Despite that, she has a pretty important role in the story and affects things to a certain extent. When it comes to drawing her, I had a bit of a rough time making sure to keep balance between her looking professional and yet having some interesting outfit choices despite that. In the early sketch, there are long, almost up to knee socks visible, but they were later removed as it looked like giving her white tights instead would make her look a little older. In this case, it's a good thing since she is 39 at the start of the story, and it did look a little more professional as well. There aren't that many descriptions of her throughout the text, at the very least for now. However, some overall true descriptions, regardless of what exactly she is wearing, include: meanwhile, a woman with short hair and strong freckled face came out of the lime green car. She was almost 40, but her face remained young. The president put her hands together and smiled nicely. It became clear that they, in contrast to her face, had suffered greatly from time and work. The smaller pose to the left does have a bit of a description, as it is her New Year celebration outfit. I find it rather adorable, especially considering the glitter on top of her jacket. Ophira was principled when it came to events of this importance, and she considered the New Year's address to be exceptionally significant. The president wanted everything to be flawless and spared no effort to ensure that it was. Decorations covered the entire filming area, the Christmas tree had been brought in from the real taiga, and local security was dressed in accordance with the country's finest traditions. The smaller pose's outfit in the middle is described in a few sentences. The elevator doors behind them opened, and to the muted sound of wide heels, President Ophira entered. Looking up at the woman from below, Tim had a rare chance to appreciate the president's grace in her long, sturdy heels and equally long, strong legs. The far-right pose doesn't have a definite description. I would say it's a variation of her day-to-day outfit. The base one with a skirt is the one she would choose more often, while the far-right pose is her with pants alternative. All in all, I'm a big fan of her freckles. I think characters with freckles are so interesting to look at and so unique. Her eye color is also rather unusual, being this odd light swamp color, not quite green but also definitely not brown. As for her height, Ophira is 1 meter 67 centimeters or approximately 5.5 feet. Sally is the head of the innovation department in the Tharian Capital Scientific Complex. She is a rather persistent person who knows what she's worth and does everything in her power to make sure others know it as well. Sally grew up in Carrion with her father. He was a smart home software developer and, because of the nature of his job, could spend a lot of his time with his daughter, teaching her basic skills like reading and writing. Later on, he was the one to notice her creative potential and suggested that she try her hands at one of the robotics classes. Little Sally was a promising girl with exceptional abilities and quickly found herself winning all of the science-related school competitions. Her overall school performance was stunning, but she still decided to try herself in the new annual exhibition of ideas instead of applying to university. She was convinced that she should be lucky and talented enough to get a spot, but that didn't happen and she had to start working as a freelancer, possibly applying next year. Pretty soon, Sally's father began acting odd. It was evident he was sick, and after some time he had a stroke. It caused him serious health issues, resulting in him falling unconscious. A little later, Sally moved to Ophira around the time Carrion's catastrophe happened, but she still kept working on a cure, hoping to one day talk to her father again. Sally is a rather important character in the story, but similarly to Ophira, she doesn't shine for quite a bit until finally getting into the spotlight. She was first drawn for an art contest I participated in on Instagram a while back. They had steampunk as one of the topics right after goth, and I decided to draw her. Kill two birds with one stone, come up with a design for a book character, and do something suitable for the contest. The first time she appears in the book, there is a pretty detailed description of her daily outfit. Edgar didn't like her at first sight. She was clearly a resident of Taria, but at the same time dressed somewhat wrong, too unusual to draw any concrete conclusions. Her brown-black corset sat perfectly on her chest and stomach. Her legs were wrapped in glossy black trousers, while bronze glasses were shining on her head, dazzlingly contrasting her bright yellow lemon hair. Sometime later, there is another description that adds a little to the first one. Sally did indeed appear, waving a small remote in her hand as if it were her trusty wrench. Outwardly, she hadn't changed at all. The same sweeping stride, leather bracelets covering half her arm, and bright lime-colored hair stood before them. Her smaller middle pose copies the main one with the addition of glasses and earrings. I found leaving her steampunk style quite an amusing detail, considering that the book's world is set in the future where everything is more so modern than anything that steampunk usually offers. The left smaller pose is a more official variation of her base outfit. I adore her tie and the vest. I think they look very good on her, keeping the overall aesthetic while still bringing something new to the table. The last pose is quite simple and shows Sally when she was younger, still had long hair and still kept a cheerful attitude to most things. Saying the same about Sally at the start of the story wouldn't be truthful. Two other things I find interesting in her design are her eyes and hair color. Her hair color is purposefully very aggressive. Its brightness, I feel, symbolizes her rebellious nature and confident, sometimes overconfident, attitude. Her eyes are quite orange, as close to red as I thought would look natural, but also a little odd. One doesn't see people with this eye color that often. At least, I don't. But they still exist, apparently, as far as I've researched. Her height is 1 meter 78 centimeters, or 5.9 feet. Edgar is the son of a wealthy landlord who has multiple islands in his possession. Stubborn by nature, he has always been of a rebellious kind, fully convinced he had to be right, no matter what the topic was. He studied to be a chemical engineer and later started working at a huge scientific facility called Cube. He was assisting his good acquaintance and Professor Oliver with her invention before taking it up himself after she was eventually fired. Despite major disagreements with his father, he still inherited all of the late Reagan's property and money. With his newly acquired wealth, Edgar was able to pretty quickly become one of the well-known philanthropists in Carrion. He enjoyed being able to use his money for someone else's benefit and knowing people respected him for that. His activities and good reputation were what slowly paved his way into politics and rhetoric. Initially, Edgar had no idea how satisfying giving speeches would be for him, but eventually got interested in it and even studied certain techniques to sound more confident and convincing. Edgar is another character who has a beard, and unlike the previous two women, he starts playing a significant role relatively early and continues to be relevant for quite a while. His design was a little hard for me due to him having a beard, similarly to another character, Zachary, who we've discussed in part 2 of Create Book Overseas with me. But I wanted his beard to be present while also keeping it very short, almost to the point of stubble. One other aspect that I aim to achieve is to make it look modern. Edgar is from the Carrion Union, the one that is more technologically advanced, and considering Edgar's patriotic nature, I wanted to show it even if in a subtle way. He has a lot of descriptions. For example, his bottom right poses outfit is based off of the following text. Behind the table sat a man in a grey jacket with an ochre plaid shirt without a tie. His base outfit is almost the same and is described in the past as the sole even so here is a man in a solid suit of a grey shirt and pants, only the ochre jacket stands out a bit, slightly dirty, grey hair impeccably combed, posture proud. Then there are even more descriptions. They happen at different times, but Edgar's style doesn't change much, so it's basically the same outfit. The conversation's lower as a figure in a white coat separates from the designers. I allow myself to guess it is Edgar. Cameras, which I'm not bothered enough to look for, are now showing Edgar in close-up, flexing on his outfit. A white jacket, grey Bordeaux pants with a slit at the bottom, and black shiny shoes with white toes. Edges of an ochre-yellow dense engineer's coat stick out from under the jacket. His elongated face is emphasized by impeccable, even-shaped stubble resembling a chin strap. The top right pose is described in the following quote. It's pleasant that the man appears exactly on time with enviable punctuality. He is wearing a different suit, but it isn't the same shades and neater overall. Unlike the last one, with visible dents and a couple of stains, the entire outfit is impeccable in both style and cleanliness. I really feel bad for one of the descriptions because it didn't really make it to the rev sheet, but I'm hoping to maybe draw it in the future. It says, Edgar entered the cafe hall. His new look consisted of a thick grey turtleneck with long sleeves, pale blue trousers, and a dark ochre jacket matching his shoes. It's so pretty, I really want to draw that, but oh well, I guess I have one more thing to draw in the future. Like, I don't have enough of them already. Anyway, the smaller pose on the left has one major difference compared to the base outfit, being the change in coats. Before Edgar started wearing almost exclusively jackets, he used to wear his lab coat a lot, looking exactly like the lab coat we see in Tim's reference sheet. Edgar's hair is a bit of a pain design-wise, but I don't see any other way to go about it, and honestly I think I like it as is. It's calm and good-looking, all I'm striving for here. As for his height, Edgar is 1 meter and 85 centimeters or 6.1 feet. Well, that was the last character for today. Everyone looks pretty good, and even though I couldn't share why these specific characters are mostly negative compared to the ones from the first and the second episodes, in order to avoid any major spoilers of course, I hope you still have fun getting to know them and following my process. In the next part, we're going to create the club crew characters. This is a trio you might have seen already in multiple of my short and long animations, but who exactly we are going to talk about and why are they called the club crew, I'm going to share with you in the next part. Stay tuned for that. If you have any questions or suggestions, feel free to comment them down below. Reading the comments and replying to them is one of the most interesting aspects about making and sharing videos online after all, at least for me. Also, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to see more content like this. See ya!